Okay. Culture Club,
What's up?
half hour.
How
I'm
you
all
doing,
right.
bud?
I'm okay. I'm okay. Special Saturday morning recording time because Friday was a little hectic. How's it with you, bud?
Things are good. I mean, things are as hectic as they've always been. I'd love to know how you are such a good time manager because I find myself to not be one.
That you, I mean, Jeff, this is one in a series of things that you have said to me that no one else in my life has ever said to me.
Well,
So,
maybe let's put it this way. Maybe both you and I are maybe we're not good schedulers, but I'm much worse than you. So I see
okay,
I see better men in front of me.
okay, I'll take it. I'll take it. I mean, any incremental improvement over, the competitive set.
So anyway, yeah, let me know, dude. How competitive was LA? Tell me about your trip out there, bud.
LA, LA was not. I wasn't competitive at all. So I got invited by a agency called Hunt and Gather. Shout out to those guys. Out to WSJ Tech Live, which is the conference that used to be called All Things D when Kara
Oh
Swisher
yeah,
and
yeah, for
and
sure.
and Walt Mossberg were there, and now that it's not, it's been rebranded as WSJ Tech Live for the last couple of years. Um, it was in Laguna Beach, right? So about an hour south of LA, and um, interesting. I went out. I was interested to see Ted Sarandos from Netflix, the founder of Perplexity, one of the CEO of Figma. Um, and then there were some other sort of more like lifestyle choices, let's call them.
What do you mean?
Hans Zimmer,
Ah,
well, Hans
yes.
Zimmer, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, um,
Okay.
and Colin Kaepernick. So anyway, interesting mix of people. The conference is very concerned about. Apologies for the dogs.
That's all right. We all got
The
dogs.
the conference is very concerned about AI, and so much so that AI kind of got forced into every conversation in a way that I didn't think was totally
Yeah.
natural. Um, so I don't know. It was interesting. It didn't blow me away, if I'm being totally honest, because I thought that the questioning could have been a little bit more insightful or incisive. Um,
Was this
and I
for?
thought
Was this?
if AI felt sort of shoehorned in. I mean, look, my feeling about AI generally is it's going to be like electricity. It's going to be
That's right.
present in everything, but also it's going to be sort of unremarkable in everything in a way. And so all of the sort of like hand wringing about it is a little misplaced, I think.
I. It's funny. I listened to a lot on AI this week, and um, I mean, it's funny. Like you talk about it just kind of being in the fabric and the way the internet is. Like
Yeah.
I have Chat GTP open now, and I was asking it questions about one of the stories that we'll talk about a little later regarding fit, and it's I'm sorry, it's so good. I don't even know
Uh,
why I'm being an apologist about it. I think there's a lot of people that are quite concerned. I mean, we've got a big story this week in the news regarding a tragic death where a young guy committed suicide, and his mother is suing the AI company. And I forgot what it is. It's an AI company that allows you to build essentially a
yeah.
chatbot that's truly your chatbot.
Yeah.
And in in the allegations she puts in front of them in the chart or in the allegation she puts in front of him is that he had a relationship with the AI.
Right.
So it's we wonder about. I'm trying to think of how to have this topic while staying extremely sensitive to what happened. But we have movies like Girl that have shown us what the future could look like. Do
Yeah.
we need to train AI to be able to read, you know, a tone in what's being written? I think it can do that today.
Yeah.
But to me, it's so interesting. All of these nuanced spaces in AI that we may or may not have thought about or talked about is coming to light that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so the story you're talking about is a suit against Character.ai, which is a custom bot maker that creates artificial personas that people then can have
Converse with.
relationships with, or converse with, and have relationships with,
Do
and
they
this
use
is
the
a
word relationship in their marketing?
I don't know. I haven't used it, and
Okay.
I'm not inclined to. But the point here is that this is a 14-year-old who has a quote unquote relationship with this AI bot who expresses suicidal ideation. The bot initially, according to what I've heard in any case, resists that, but then says some stuff in response to some of his prompts that appears to encourage him to, you know,
Take his
commit
life.
suicide, take his own life, and it's, I mean, obviously it's shocking and super sad and inexcusable. But it also begs the question, like, why is a 14-year-old kid allowed to access this thing, knowing that he's his brain is developing, that he's not emotionally mature, etc. And I think rather than trying to code some level of sensitivity or context into these apps, it's like you just have to say, look, these aren't for certain people. Like and I don't mean certain people in a broad demographic sense. I just mean like you shouldn't have teenagers on there. You don't have kids on there. It's um
I I would
it's
agree that there should be pretty strong guardrails in the
yeah,
same way that
there is
that may
for
actually that may lead to another question. Is like when, and this is almost ridiculous because the answer is never, but when do you start to, you know, for instance, me, I have a 6 and a 9 year old. You know,
yeah.
when do I begin to allow them to kind of have free will in those computers? And the
Yeah, I don't
likelihood is
know, man.
probably not for a long time, right?
Well, it's funny. It's like when Jonathan Haidt's book, or I shouldn't say it's not funny, but it's interesting for me anyway. When Jonathan Haidt's book, the loneliest generation, whatever it's called,
Hmm.
last it came out last year or this earlier this year, and there was all that hubbub about kids on social media and kids on mobile phones. I reflected back through the experience of my own kids who are now eight. Well, Campbell's 18 tomorrow on Sunday, and Harper's 15. They had access to technology early. They, had phones at 11 so that they could go to school, as we deemed it safely. And they've come out of the whole thing, I think pretty well adjusted, pretty adept and pretty savvy. And so it's easy for me to say, well, it's okay so
Yeah, I
long
mean,
as you
you're
modulate
right,
the
Ben.
use and so on and so forth. By the
Your
same token, we
environment.
we have a very right, exactly. We have a very specific environment and a lot of benefits that other people don't have. And so I hasten to say when it's right. I think parents have to take they have to make their own decisions about what's right for their
That's
kids.
right.
So I would say
That's
for
right.
yours,
And
like,
listen, everyone parents their own way. There is no right or wrong to this. We're all, we all succeed and fail in our own ways.
but
But it is
but
environment. But it
yeah,
is environment. It's
that's
parenting. It's nurturing.
that's
It's
right.
paying attention. And
Yeah.
and again, this is just my view of what I think is important. And sometimes we miss stuff, and that's why
Right.
you know.
Well, the difference between that and this and the AI thing is that this character AI bot is operating outside of the supervision of anybody, right? Like there is nobody at the company who is supervising it, and there
Oh,
is
really?
nobody. Well, I mean, how could, just think about it logically? How could you build a business based on scaled interactions through AI and then have
Yeah.
a human interlocutor monitoring
You know
everything?
what,
It's
Ben?
you might as well hire a person at that
You're
point. You know what I
absolutely
mean? It's
right.
just
I mean,
it's not right. Or it's
that
not it
kind of,
doesn't work.
and it only at this moment that I really think about it, but this AI could be as problematic as Instagram or TikTok in terms of the
Oh,
addiction of
yeah.
it, right?
Look, 100%, and it can be. I think what we've seen on all of these things is that they can be coded in a certain way to react in situations that have been anticipated, but when they get into situations that haven't been anticipated, or when they've been pushed, or when they reach the end of their processing universe or whatever, they start to behave in ways that are weird and unexpected. And if that's if the person on the other end of the line, so to speak, doesn't get that and takes it as gospel, we end up with problems, as appears to be the case with this young man
Yeah.
who tragically
Let's
has died.
we'll yeah, we're gonna see where that goes, and certainly should keep talking about it. Um, I want to bring this mood up a little bit positive for a Saturday morning because it's quite sunny here. I don't know how's the weather there must be amazing.
Yeah,
Ben, I just want to say,
it's gorgeous here in New York.
Ben, I just want to say thank you again for your hospitality as usual. But the speaking of environment, you know, I say it literally every week to my students. Nothing is more inspiring than walking down the streets of large cities like New York where things are happening. I left charged. I always feel like I leave that city
Yeah, yeah.
charged. And also, you know, we've talked about this in the show too. I've got a major problem because I'm a big workwear guy in Miami. You know, workwear does not necessarily work well with, no
It's
pun
all
intended, with
it's all
90-degree
virtual
weather.
jobs. It's all virtual
Yeah,
jobs down there.
you know, I've been very lucky to find things here and there. And um, I was searching the web after a great shopping trip with you, actually. I ended up at Pilgrim as well and picked up some engineered garments and pants. Shout out to
Oh,
those
cool.
guys. I also met the founder, and I forget his name, gentleman with beard and
Yeah,
glasses.
it's Chris
Chris,
Gentile.
super great guy too, and he really sold
Chris
me
is.
into a pair. He sold me into a pair of excellent pants.
Oh,
But with that
really?
said,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
Chris is awesome. Shout out to Pilgrim. Pilgrim, for those who aren't aware, started out as the New York outpost of Mollusk, the surf shop
that's
in
right.
Venice, and was in the secret project robot building on the Brooklyn waterfront for a while, and it was a very weird and very like if you know you know kind of thing. And Chris over the years has built this great brand out of it. He's got a partnership with Beams out of Japan, who they collaborate to fabricate all of that stuff. He's got great distribution in Japan, and then that store in Brooklyn is just like it's a great community hub. Everything they sell in there is cool, and Chris is
Totally.
just couldn't be a sweeter or more sort of like you know
And I love the building, by the way.
engaged dude. So
I
it's
mean,
like
he
it's a
was
great
he was
store.
there with his son and took a moment to lend a helping hand, which is cool. Also,
Yeah.
shout out to Jamal Williams, who I ran into. Haven't
Oh,
seen
no
Jamal for
doubt.
a while.
Wow,
Uh,
that's funny. So Jamal, former pro skateboarder
Pops.
and I was going to say, yeah, the main man behind Pops, the New York City based skateboard hard goods brand.
Don't forget too, he was in
Pops,
Boston and
not Hops.
yeah, Pops.
Yeah.
He was in Miami and Boston before New York.
Oh, I didn't know
Funny
that.
enough. Yeah.
I didn't know he
I
was in
actually
Miami.
met him in Boston.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, he was OG Boston skateboarding. Along with Robbie Genjemi and others.
Yes, Ben.
But then I didn't realize he went to Miami. That's interesting.
I didn't either. Only knew that because he was there with a friend of his from Miami, and I guess they had met down here.
Ah,
Um,
cool.
but anyway, shout out to Jamal. I always love running into him.
Yeah, he's
He's
crazy.
just he's such a. This sounds ridiculous, but he's just such a normal dude. You know, I don't know. Like he's just he lives his life to the fullest the way he wants to. But regardless, I did a ton of shopping, and we've talked about how difficult it is to wear things in Miami here, especially with the heat. And I'm scrolling through Instagram stories, and lo and behold, the story catches my eye, and I'm grabbed by it. And the headline's basically 30-year-old dead stock Supreme blanks are going on sale.
Yeah.
And I was
I
like,
saw this.
you saw this as well. I think we all were like, what the hell's going on here? And I think I put it off for a couple days, but I was able to finally look this weekend, and this is just one of those stories that's amazing. Essentially,
yeah. So no, I was just gonna say. So talk about it.
I just want to make sure I got the founder's name correctly here before I.
All right, so I'll provide a little backstory while you're looking.
Yeah.
So essentially the original manufacturer of Supreme's branded goods, right? So the original box.
This is like
logo.
really original. This is 90s.
Yeah, exactly. Like
this is not like what's this Wings and Horns factory up in Canada? They do Reigning Champ Wings and Horns.
Oh, I don't know. I was going to say Reigning Champ, but yeah. In
anyway,
any case,
continue, Ben. Sorry.
Well, so the original manufacturer of Supreme's branded goods, right? The people that James and Co. were buying blanks from and then having branded with Supreme, found or relocated or unearthed or whatever not really sure how it happened, but they unearthed a bunch of original dead stock stuff from the 90s, and it's going on sale. So
yeah, and the guy's name is
now
Brent.
You pick up the story.
It's actually a fantastic story, and this is why when you look at the history of like garmentos or fabrication, there was so much there was so much. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but so much cover to keep your sources, hidden so people wouldn't use them. I remember when
Right.
Supreme's 5 panel hats were just massive. Everybody wanted to know the factory, and one day the factory actually put up a photo of the Supreme hats they were cooking up, and they had to take them down because Supreme didn't want to give up that vendor. By the way, it
Yeah,
was
of
made in
course.
the U.S. Gentleman's name is Stephen Brent, and I guess through the 80s and 90s, he had a manufacturing company, and he was making American-made goods. He's made quite a number of different goods. Specifically in the early 90s, he was, as far as the story's told, and he does have paperwork to back it up, or at least photos, which is so cool. One of the original suppliers, if not the original supplier, for those famous, late 90s Supreme hoodies, which is super heavy in general. And he, and by the way, in the early 90s as well, he was producing for Japanese brands too. So this
Mm,
guy had a cottage, he had a cottage market. Is it cottage? No, it's niche. He had a niche market of being an amazing supplier for probably brands that we haven't even heard of, Ben, that were pulling American made goods.
yeah, for
Lo and
sure.
behold,
Oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
No,
I
after
was just
you.
gonna say, so something went wrong with a business deal, or one of the warehouses that was storing his goods, and for the last 30 years he has not had access to this. And
Okay.
as far as I understand it, the gentleman that he had a disagreement with had passed away, and he made he was able to figure something out with a family to get it all back. It looks like it's supposedly like 300. It's supposed to be like 30,000 pounds of vintage. And if you go to the
Wow.
website, he's also doing it smart. He's dropped a lot, and he's also using a drop model, which is cool. So every week he's dropping these massive, uh, these specific pieces that he still has stock on,
Right.
and it's amazing how much he has. And I think it's fantastic. I went crazy last night and bought a lot off this guy. He was making, Carhartt style duck canvas pants. He was making hoodies. He was making um, jackets for World War II movies, as an example.
Right.
And it's amazing what he has out there. Now, he's also, this is the thing I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
So if you go to the store, and full disclosure, I bought almost one of each. He is selling his American made from the 90s. Remember, this is stock from the 90s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Reverse weave and then tubular cut crew necks.
Okay.
And they're not cheap. It's not like you're selling, they're $115. They're, to me, um, the ability to get a 90s dead stock, reverse weave is almost impossible. And
Right.
$115 for some people may seem high, but I found it to be just a great price.
Yeah. Well, it's in line with another. I mean, similarly, probably made stuff like Camber, the workwear
Another
provider
great place.
out of American Made out of Pennsylvania. They Totem in Philadelphia just brought in a big, like a gang of new Totem stuff, or of new Camber stuff. Excuse me. And yeah, that's in the, yeah, 115, up to 150 range for
All right, I'm looking now. 110,
for
same
American
price.
made heavyweight, super heavyweight sweats and all of that sort of stuff. And Camber's, I don't really understand Camber all that well, except to say that the stuff is supposed to be amazing. Everybody swears by it. I don't have any of it myself, but they don't release very often, and so it's a, little pilgrimage over to Totem to check that out.
I love
By
Camber. I
Oh,
have some
sorry, go ahead.
pieces, but they are. I, my opinion is that they come out very dry. They're super rigid, which I love too because they kind of break down.
Uh,
But again, a
the
great product.
the opposite of that was something that I want to shout out. When you were here, we visited Sibone, which is the Japanese, let's call it arts and crafts boutique, in which is in Greenpoint, right around the corner from my house, but also is in Tokyo. And like I say to people all the time, it's a little bit like Pilgrim. It's like everything in there is great. Literally everything in there is great. And so it every time I go in, it's a fight to control myself. But the thing that I picked up while you were here was a sweatshirt and a crew neck from the Wakayama project, which is this special knit manufacturer using super old looms, loop wheel techniques, and all of this sort of stuff, and very
And then
small
it
little
looks
goods.
great.
Thank you. I'm for those watching the pod, I'm wearing it or wearing the sweatshirt that I bought. But it, on the other hand, unlike the camber being super stiff, is incredibly soft and supple. And so, you know, uh, uh, I
Do
guess
you
it is to
prefer that,
say
Ben?
different strokes for different folks. No, I mean, I don't know, man. I like beating things up, so
I do too.
it's
I do
good.
too.
It's good. It's good when it's soft to start with, and then it's also good when it's more rigid, and then you can get the feeling of achievement. Imagine that, Jeff. The feeling achievement that comes from wearing in a pair of jeans or a
I try
boxer
to
short.
explain that to people, they don't get it, and I only got that point across. One of the one of my programs, I do a denim program where I try to tell history through the eyes of the Levi's 501, because the Levi's
Okay.
501 has had multiple cuts over the years, and I think when they finally see like a dead, like a salvage dead stock versus a wash, they get like what it actually takes to break
Mm-hmm.
something down like that. But it's an interesting.
Do you
It's
do
interesting. Hmm?
do you do any of the methods? Do you do the like the salt scrub or the salt water, like the swim or any of that stuff? I've done all of these things at some point or another,
I
so I'm
I
curious.
have 100% gone into the ocean with denim because I think that's just a rite of passage, and it doesn't have to be salvage denim.
No, it's a rite of passage for you, not a rite of passage for the jeans, right? Like for the
Right,
jeans, it's
right.
whatever, but for you, it's like, yeah, I'm the asshole wearing jeans into the ocean.
The most ridiculous thing I ever did in jeans was jump in the water once, and I'm pretty sure I did a 3K in a pair of Levi's at one point, fully
No
blazed with some
way.
friends. Yeah, but they were like silver tabs. I'm pretty sure they were like baggies, but
What?
this was years ago. This was a different time.
Yeah, was that like a Halloween fun run or something? What
Ben,
the
you know what
hell was
happens
that
when you're a
about?
young youth? You remember what 18
Wait,
is like.
young youth. By the way, speaking of young youth, because of course, young youth as a term is burned into my brain from Wu Tang. The Wu Tang Dunk is coming out, and they just Nike just put out a Wu Tang Dunk spot with Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, and Jalen Brunson from the Knicks out on what appears to be Staten Island at getting an ice cream truck. They shout out the ice cream flavors from Raekwon's ice cream, and and then they throw some references to Tiger Style and stuff. Uh, it's a fun little pop culture moment. It's nice that they're leveraging the Knicks. The Brooklyn Nets catch a stray out of it because the guy says "Welcome to New York, Mikal." Mikal's been playing in Brooklyn, so I mean, fuck
Amazing.
off from
Well, let's
everybody
talk.
from in Brooklyn. But in any case,
I want to talk about it because I think it's interesting. Listen,
okay, well so let's talk about it because when it first came out, it looked like they were just reproducing this legendary, sort of friends and family super small run Wu Tang Dunk from whenever that was, 99, something like that.
quite some time ago.
Yeah, yeah, it was a long time ago, and that they were doing it instead of embroidery on the back panel, that it was just screen print, and it just looked half-assed. And that criticism apparently has gotten to heart because it's now coming to light that it's embroidered, that it comes in a special 6 hexagonal box with Wu Tang branding on it. That's a
So cool.
whole special thing. So yeah, I don't know.
And
Is that
maybe listen,
is
they
that
maybe
Nike listening, or is that just like
they,
bad signals from the beginning?
listen. They better be listening. And on that note, that's what I was thinking about. Like this shoe has been in the works before the announcement of the CEO change. And what it leads me to believe, and again, this could be full on, this is just full, my theory, that they knew things were not going great far down that cycle before we
Oh yeah,
really saw light of it
yeah, yeah,
in the stock, right?
yeah, yeah,
And I got to tell you, we know that the one thing that they've been lacking on is the culture connection. And for as much as I am not necessarily a fan of always looking to the past, I think Nike has to touch it again in some way in order to move forward. But yes, and the great thing I think that what's cool about it is with something like a stitch or embroidery, and God, I don't know how they would remove a stitch and a stamp. I wouldn't imagine how they could take a stamp out. They're probably in a place with the supply chain where they can make that kind of change pretty quickly these days, where they don't have to,
yeah. I would
wait
hope so.
6 months for another run of it.
Right.
Um, But let's see. Let's see if this is one part of many things that will move the needle and move it forward. Nike
Yeah, I
does need
mean,
a Nike needs an innovation win, in my opinion. They need to look back to look forward, but they need an innovation win. They haven't had one in a while.
yeah, I was talking about this the other day with a somebody at Plus Plus. The notion of the prominence of drops and the frequency of drops, or just collaborations generally speaking. Like, you either do a lot of them and you can do them small because there's so much frequency, or you got to do big ones, um, which can come less frequently. But either way, it's like, if you're not constantly in the conversation at this point, you're not in the conversation.
I do want to add one thing that could be very controversial, and
Okay, here
it,
we
it,
go.
it, it falls into a theory of historical context or just cultural literacy that I'm constantly talking about. Do the kids today actually care about Wu Tang? And I think I say that because there's such a tremendous number of fans of hip hop,
Yeah.
fans of the music we have today that not do not necessarily look back. They want what's generationally theirs. And if that's the case, who is the Wu Tang? Who's the Wu Tang that
Yeah,
I'm talking to?
I don't agree with that at all. I think the availability of music to everyone, from like I mean, and obviously this isn't totally true, but it's generally speaking, the availability of every piece of recorded music ever available to everybody means that there is an incredibly Catholic choice across people's playlists and music inspirations. My daughter, who's 15, came downstairs unprompted, singing um, "I Don't Want to Lose Your Love Tonight," like the song by The Outfield from 1986 that was in like the
Yes.
Footloose soundtrack or some shit like that. And I was just like, where do you get this from?
Yeah,
The
you're
reason I bring
right,
it
Ben.
up is the reason I bring it up is because my son, who is, like I said, 18 tomorrow, had and most recently went to a Ken Carson concert, and is just
Okay.
like asked for a copy of Sex Mag for his birthday, which is this
Oh,
downtown New York magazine
that
that has
reminds me, I
a
have to buy a copy.
$1 Million Extreme on the cover. His some these comedians that he likes. Um, so in other words, he's very attuned to what's contemporary and what his peers are into. By the same token, he had a huge Wu Tang phase in the past year that all centered around Return to the 36 Chambers. It was not the distributed Wu Tang universe, or the Martin Shkreli record. It was the OG document, and that was what
Interesting.
he got into and his friends got into.
And you're right. You're right, Ben. You're right. My son, one of his favorite songs is "Everybody Wants to Rule the World," which
Huh.
he pulled from whatever
Is that
movie he
what?
pulled
That's
from.
that Tears for Fears?
Tears for Fears. Thank you, Ben. Appreciate
Tears
that.
for
It was
Fears.
Tears for Fears.
Jeff, let me ask you a question. Sorry, this is
Sure.
a total non sequitur, but it happens to be from circa Wu Tang prominence. And also, I have here in front of me a pair of
Wow.
Nike Air
Harachis.
Wovens.
Or
This
Airwoven,
is
rather. Is that an
this is the
HTM or just inline?
no, this is the 2003 re-release of one of the original OG colorways, and the soles are separating, right? So I can go and get some adhesive, or I can get the top cobbler to get some adhesive here. But I wonder, is the foam going to break down? Are we just going to, are these just
Uh,
dead, or can I fix them?
no. I, one of the coolest pairs of wovens I ever found was in the basement of Concepts when they were in
Mm-hmm.
Cambridge
Sure.
Square. And I found, this is a true story. I found one,
Okay.
and Tarek Hussein, who runs it, like, let me take the one. And then
Mm-hmm.
like months later, they found the
The other one.
match. And just like your shoe, it had that same problem. And if I recall, I think I did try just to use shoe glue in the beginning. But to me, it's one of those things that it is a piece of art. I will say this: I don't know about you, Ben, but has it aged well on your feet, regardless of the breakdown? Like, do you
Oh,
still
well, I
love
mean,
wearing
look,
them?
this is so okay. So again, to everybody who's not watching, this is like a, let's call it anthracite, meaning sort of
Such
a
a great
gray
color.
blue, or blue gray, if you want to think of it that way. A sort of a light gray, and a kind of varsity crimson, varsity red uh, or Woven, right?
Right.
Nike Woven, which came out in 2001, if I'm not, or maybe 2000, if I'm not mistaken, and was released. It was one of the very first Tier Zero type releases. The first time I ever
That's
saw it
right.
was at A Life Rivington Club, and then I later saw them at Transit. But they disappeared over the course of a weekend, and it was the onset of, I think, the kind of real, being hunted sneaker culture
Shout out
drop
being
model
hunted.
that we're all so familiar with now. And um, this shoe occupies a pride of place in my imagination, and so it will always look good forever, as far as I'm
Totally.
concerned.
I agree.
Which is why I want to fix it, and I want to keep wearing them.
And there's
I just
peak
think it's
innovation
not.
there.
Yeah, exactly. And you could go and you could put them, you could refit them on a Vibram sole or something like that, like Shop Goods and Services, chronicles on their Instagram. But
By the way,
I don't
are
really
they
want to do
in
that.
New
I
York?
want to no Shop Goods. I think they're LA Shop Goods and Services.
Because
But
I want to resole a pair of Tom Sachs service shoes that I have, and I've seen it put onto a Vibram, and it looks sick. It actually looks amazing.
yeah. So I don't I believe those guys are in LA, but I also believe that there are places popping up like that all
By the
over the
way,
place.
I would say that the silhouette, that the one thing we should mention about the Air Woven is that it's laceless, right? And it's also
Yep.
a slip on,
Yep.
technically.
Yep.
Um, I'm a little bit worried what that would look like on Vibram if you put it on. It feels
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
slender.
Well, that's why I say it. I want to keep the original stuff, but if the foam is just going to literally disintegrate on me, then that's going to
It
suck.
will.
It's going to make me.
It will eventually. And that is
Well,
the
sure, but if it's another 20 years, then I've got 20 more years of wear out of.
I mean, that's amazing. The oldest pair of shoes I still own, I actually still own a pair of Wovens up they're upstate.
Yeah.
And my oldest pair is my original 1997 Air Max 97s that I bought at City Sports in Boston that have
No, those have got.
absolutely
Yeah, I was gonna.
disintegrated.
That's super yellow, blown
Oh,
out. You can't put them on
yes.
type thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well. Well, Jeff,
Ben,
we
we could
didn't
talk
manage.
about this all day.
I was going to say we didn't manage to talk about any of the items on the list except for the WSJ conference and the
Brent's Warehouse, check it out.
Brent's where
BrentsWarehouse.com. Don't steal my stuff because I know he's got a
oh
good
wait,
drop coming.
and the Wu Tang Dunk. But anyway, we got tons of other stuff we need to talk about. One thing we should say is rest in peace to DJ Clark Kent.
Absolutely.
I didn't know Clark well. I don't know if you did. I met him a few times and he was always lovely. So
He was
sad to
always
see,
he was
sad
always
that he's
larger than
passed.
life. He was always larger than life for me. I mean, he was a very tall man in general, but he was nothing. He was nothing short of just super cool and nice
Yeah.
always. And quite frankly, I think that's the story you keep hearing from him. Is you keep hearing from people is how everyone's got a story about Clark. In the same way that there's other people. Just because he was a man about town,
Yeah.
um, he was a force. For those that are not familiar, he broke some extremely major musicians over time. And yeah, rest in peace, Clark. I'm gonna have great memories.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, on that, started a little somber, ending a little somber, but guys, this has been Culture Club half hour. Thanks for tuning in. Do the whole subscribe and comment and share thing. It helps us and it helps you because it puts goodwill into the world. Yeah.
Ben,
There you go.
fantastically said. All right, man. See you guys. Take care.
All right. Later.
Ben, I love when we free flow like that, dude. Even though we
Yeah.
don't have an agenda. I mean, sorry, we have an agenda,